Agatha Christie, the British author, was dubbed the Queen of Crime in England from the 1950s. She wrote popular crime stories, and one of her famous quotes is, "No innocent person ever has an alibi." Think about it. Let us know in the chat if you think you know what it means. No innocent person ever has an alibi. Agatha Christie really got me to thinking. Is it because an innocent person is not always thinking of how they can prove their whereabouts? Because the alibi defense means the defendant has to provide evidence supporting an alibi. That is the operative word, provide evidence, like a credit card or debit card receipt. And nowadays, we are encouraged not to ask for paper receipts. When we are at the till, if we are lucky enough to have someone serving us, they will ask us. And if we are at a self-checkout, well, you have to remember to click the icon, "Yes, I would like a receipt." And our minds are in conflict. What about the environment? Do I really need this little piece of paper? Put a 1 in the chat if you are following my thinking. Okay, let me give you a few more to think about. What about surveillance footage? Should we be making sure we look up at the camera to make sure it takes a great picture of us, just in case we are accused of a crime? What about photographs? Do we have to make sure our locations are enabled to take selfies, just to make sure if we are ever accused of a crime, we'll have an alibi? What about statements from others? Do we have to make sure we have a memorable conversation, just so that they can remember us in the event we are accused of a crime? So anyway, I thought no innocent person ever has an alibi could mean that people committing the crimes make sure they have an alibi. Pretty powerful, isn't it? No innocent person ever has an alibi. Because why would they ever, in a million years, think that they would need one? Which leads nicely to the elements of an alibi defense. The defendant was somewhere else. The defendant had no reasonable opportunity to commit the crime, and the defendant could not have committed the crime by other means. So those are the 3 elements to establish an alibi defense. Let's get into Bryan Kohberger's alibi.
Man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022 in their off-campus home. Today, defense attorneys for Bryan Kohberger submitted an official alibi for the night the students were killed. It reads in part, quote, Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, as he often did, to hike and run and or see the moon and stars. He drove throughout the area south of Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including Wuwei Park. Kohberger's team said they plan to introduce a cell tower expert to show that he never drove along the Moscow-Pullman highway the morning of the murders.
Oh boy, I forgot to say hello. What are my manners like? Hello, legal-minded friends. Please subscribe and like and share. It helps YouTube and me to know if you are finding value in my content. So please send a super chat if you have a specific question, and I will do my best to answer with a reply back to you. If you love true crime and understanding the process of law, consider our memberships. However you choose to support my channel, your support is greatly appreciated. So let's get into it. How plausible is Bryan Kohberger's alibi that he was not in the area where the horrific crimes took place? Did you know that alibi is a Latin word meaning elsewhere? An alibi defense is when the defendant provides evidence they were somewhere else at the time of the alleged offenses, so it could not have been the defendant who committed the crimes. If you're not familiar with this case, or even if you are familiar, check out my playlist, as I cover a lot of interesting elements. And I even take you on a road trip comparing the serial killer Fred West case, where they demolished his property like they did with the property in Idaho. Do you think tearing down the crime scene, the property, was a good idea? How will that impact the case? Now, providing a solid alibi with evidence may not be as easy as it sounds, but if a solid alibi is presented, there is extra pressure on the prosecution as they need to investigate the alibi, as the burden still remains with the prosecutor. and the defendant does not need to give testimony, meaning the evidence can speak to the defendant's innocence. So we talked about what the defense will need to provide with evidence, and it's kind of complicated because they need to provide that the defendant was at a particular place or area at a particular time. That will show they were not, or it is unlikely they could have been at a place where an offense is alleged to have been committed at the time of its alleged time. Can you see how that's kind of complicated? So the defense is saying that they can provide evidence that Kohberger had a regular habit of going stargazing. Now, the defense needed to give notice of any witnesses or expert witnesses that they will call to testify so that the prosecution service can investigate. And in this case, the prosecution says that Kohberger's alibi lacks the specificity required by Idaho law, which states that the defense shall state the specific place or places at which the defendant claims to have been at the time of the alleged offense, and names and addresses of witnesses upon whom he intends to rely to establish such an alibi. And they say that the defendant is offering nothing new to his initial alibi, that he was simply out driving around the morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The defense is saying that Bryan Kohberger's cell phone data can prove he was not located near the crime scene, which was 1122 King Road, Moscow. And they say that on the early hours of the morning of November 13th, 2022, Bryan Kohberger was not even in the area where the offense took place or at the alleged time, as he was driving through the area south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho, including Wuwei Park. The prosecution says that Kohberger's cell phone stopped reporting to the cellular network before the homicides and continued not to report after the homicides. And they argue that the defendant has been given more time than is legally entitled in order to prove his alibi. So because of this, the prosecution has requested that the court deny Kohberger and his defense team any further opportunity to add any purported claim of an alibi. Does the prosecutor have a good point? Even if Kohberger can prove his phone was somewhere else, where was he? As he still has to overcome the damning evidence of his DNA on the knife sheath. So let's look a little closer at his alibi. He says he was out driving, as he often did, to hike and run and see the moon and stars. Hey, I have a question for you guys. Did you know if the moon is bright, it makes stargazing less visible? Let us know in the chat if you knew that. And we'll talk about the weather conditions on that night in just a bit. He continues to say that his alibi will give evidence of several photos showing him by the countryside late at night and or in the early morning hours on several occasions, and including in November, depicting the night sky. Well, legal-minded friends, I'm sure you're thinking the exact same thought I am. Does he have photographic evidence showing his location on the early morning hours of the 13th of November 2022? Now let's discuss the weather conditions on that night, as I've heard some say that they looked up the weather conditions and it was overcast that night. And I found this police body cam video of the police stopping some boys. Notice what it captures.
Sorry guys, I know it's cold. Like I said, it's one thing to drink inside, I'm sure. I mean, we've all been to college, we've all been there. But it's another thing to be very publicly intoxicated and kind of bring this conversation on you. So, that being said, not the end of the world. So, just an infraction, not a criminal charge, nothing like that. So,
appreciate that.
Yeah. In the future, I know it might seem like it's weird that cops walk around in plain clothes, but we do have a job to do. So if I yell at you guys, hey, come talk to me, probably should go that route instead of walking away, all right?
What do you think? Did you notice the sky and how it looked very overcast? Loads of clouds. Could you see any of the stars? Did you notice the time? It was in the right upper hand corner. It was 3:09 a.m. in the morning. Gosh, and the investigators believe the slayings of the Idaho students took place between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Gosh, it's kind of eerie when you think just an hour and a bit later such a horrific crime would take place when there was police out policing the streets. Just so hard to believe, isn't it? So I found this great website where you can see past weather. It gives the date, times, temperature, wind, and visibility, and much, much more information by the hour. So I did the research for us, and I found that it was overcast in that area. There was some overcast, and the sky visibility was around 10 miles. So my next question was, how much visibility do you need to see the stars? And I found out a visibility of 10 miles away during the day. The naked eye can see dark objects against the sky, and at night, a known moderately intense light source that is about 10 miles away. Well, is it a coincidence that the weather conditions were just within his visibility? I wonder if he was just using his naked eye to see these stargaze, or if police recovered a travel telescope or binoculars. I didn't see any of these on the list of items the police collected from Bryan Kohberger's property. Do you? It's kind of hard to read those scribbles, but it doesn't look like it's there anyway. But Bryan Kohberger did give authority to his public defender, N.C. Taylor, to collect personal items remaining at the property. And the police also searched his parents and his car. And what else did they search? Yeah, a storage facility that they found. So who knows? Maybe they will find something like that to corroborate his stargazing alibi. Well, I do find it curious that Bryan Kohberger traveled to Wuwei Park. So if we look at that park, it's got a lake, a big lake beside it. So if the authorities have the slaying times incorrect, then one might wonder, well, that's a pretty big lake to throw any evidence in. Who knows? But there's another reason if his alibi is correct, and that is that science suggests you need to be 20 to 30 miles away from city lights for the best views of a night sky. So it could also be for that reason that he went to Wuwei Park. So I wanted to see if Wuwei Park was, a good place to go to view the stars and everything else. So I looked up, and NASA, which I didn't even realize had a YouTube channel, they have over 12 million subscribers. Wow, isn't that amazing? So anyway, they have this article on how to find good places to stargate. So if you want to do some more investigating on your own, and you want to see if Wuwei Park fits the criteria for optimal viewing, check out that article. It's pretty interesting. And if you are interested in astronomy, I have a couple of little bonuses for you at the end of this video, so stick around for that. The other requirement of an alibi is to give notice of witnesses and expert witnesses that the defense will call. That will support the alibi. They have said their expert will testify that Bryan Kohberger's mobile device did not travel east of Moscow-Pullman Highway, and therefore it could not be his vehicle that was captured along the Moscow-Pullman highway near Floyd's cannabis shop. And his expert is also an expert in cell towers, cell phone, and radio frequency. So now we hear a lot about cell towers in trials, but what are radio frequencies? I am no expert when it comes to radio frequencies or cell phone locations. However, I was an arson analyst for the Fire and Rescue Service, and I know there are ways to locate phones. And I, like the prosecutor, thought it was interesting that Kohberger turned his phone off prior to the slayings, and then his phone came back on after. So I kind of thought that was interesting, and I thought, well, that's, something that they need to look into. However, radio frequency measures power levels and antenna patterns, and the concept is that if a mobile is powered, which means it has energy left on it, it will be able to communicate wirelessly with one of the closest base stations. That then implies that, the cell phone is nearby. So I think that's what his expert will testify to. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the problem that Bryan Kohberger will have is that his expert will give testimony that supports his theory, and as we often see in trials, another expert will contradict a theory. And we saw that happen in the Karen Reed trial. Karen Reed will be retried, and I assume we're going to hear more about cell phone location in that case, as the first hearing ended with a mistrial. And, this cell phone location is always disputed. We saw it in the Alex Murdaugh case, and I think he's also asked for a retrial. And we saw it in 2017. The defendants in the Holly Bobo trial used extensive cell phone location data. Their experts even battled out disagreeing on what a pin location meant. So, all I can say is for these cases, it didn't work out very well for the defendants. So I think, other supporting evidence may be just as important. So I don't know what you think. Is that a good alibi? Anyway, we do have an update on the Bryan Kohberger case. The trial is set to begin June 2nd, 2025, and he has filed a motion for a venue change.
Prosecutors today argued against a motion from the defense that would move the trial out of the county where the crime happened. Liz Kreutz has the details.
This is State versus Bryan Kohberger.
The state of Idaho fighting to keep Bryan Kohberger's trial in the county where he's accused of committing 4 murders.
We at least owe Latah County, the people of Latah County, the attempt to seat a jury here first.
In a newly filed motion, prosecutors objecting to the defense's argument to move the trial 300 miles away to Boise in Ada County, writing that the court should decline to relocate itself, the state, and scores of witnesses hundreds of miles, only to face another jury pool with similarly high media exposure. A judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. The defense arguing that the jury pool in Latah County is already prejudiced against Kohberger, in part because of overwhelming media attention.
I'm saying there is pervasive media coverage in this case. It's prejudicial media coverage. We've conducted a survey in Latah County. That survey is going to show bias and that you shouldn't have a trial in this county.
That survey, commissioned by the defense, saying 98% of people in Latah County recognize the Kohberger case, with 70% of those people saying they've already formed a guilty opinion of Kohberger.
These are deeply held opinions in this community within this jury pool.
But prosecutors arguing that the survey actually showed a higher prejudgment rate in residents of Ada County and Boise than Latah. A lawyer for Kaylee Gonzalez's family saying that moving the trial hundreds of miles away would pose a massive inconvenience and expense for the families who have been anxiously awaiting justice.
As I've only used a few clips from this news release, please consider watching the full interview of the attorney for the family. I have left a link in my description area below. Now, I promised you a bonus if you are interested in stargazing or astronomy. And of course, the closest star to us is the sun. So if you are interested in knowing something about the sun you may not know, you can watch an interview I had with UK science author Marcus Chown. And you will also find out a little something you may not know about me. So there should be a clickable link if you look to the top right corner of this video that will directly take you to that video. And if you're not subscribed to Joey Brooklyn, I recommend you check out his channel and watch his video as he captured stunning views of the solar eclipse in Long Island, New York. And you should also be able to find a clickable link in the right corner of your smartphone to go directly to that video. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. What do you think is going to happen with this case? What's your views? By leaving a comment, you may help someone else that will read your comment. And of course, I love to read all comments as they are valued, and together we can be more informed. And this information may help you or someone you know. In the meantime, on this channel, you'll find a variety of playlists to suit every curiosity about the justice system. And we provide you with a visual to information and the process. Going through a legal worry is devastating, and the Who Knew and Why Me playlists are designed to help you or someone you know. So please like this video if you like this kind of content. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you want to be notified when I'm going live or upload another video. I'm Karen Cole from Legal Minded Friends. Information is power, meaning if you know something, you can make decisions that are right for you.